of lust and fate.
Here we go, thought Percival aloud. Percival was primed now. Whomever appeared to him next would be his friend, for it would be good for the soul not to be alone now. Then, too, this new enchantment of Merlin's demanded some service to those of the world. Good deeds were not passé. And yes, he thought, we are all condemned to death on the day we are born. That is our fate, ever in our minds, but oh, how we would love to have a divine destiny. So we create gods in our own image. But too, almost surely, that dreadful day comes when we realize that neither we nor the gods are really so divine as we thought. Then we must face that ultimate humility, that we are but one of a species and held together by physics. Yes, one of a kind, a special kind, but nevertheless just bundles of joy and folly, pursuing a rather lucky existence and feeling so alone in a world of 100,000 people. Doomed to death we fall. Well, it's been said before, but is hard to act on. We might as well enjoy the fall on the way down instead of screaming, or we will live life as an illusion, forever hiding from ourselves. For nothing ever seems to hurt if you are willing to experience it. Only when we resist do we feel the pain, and do we ever. Again, fact and feeling in tandem. It is hard to think about this without becoming emotional and clouding the issue with feeling.
Suddenly, Percival came upon a huge serpent, again, with a lion in its clutches. And as before, he favored the lion and quickly slew the snake with Prince Valor's swinging sword. A maiden appeared and harshly cursed him for a time, but luckily, curses were no longer as effective on Earth. Percival explained that he had again favored the gentler of the two beasts. After some wine, they lay down upon the spine of the dragon, the ground. Percival made the sign of the cross as usual, but she did not disappear, for she was no fiend, and Percival was virgin no more in body, but was still pure in spirit. And yes, it was a time come for men, and for women too, and just as suddenly she had to be gone for a time, but promised to return soon. But who was she? Her name was Alexis, a pagan name. A days was soon to come, a year of enchantment, Merlin's last gift to him. Percival felt the flush of the enchantment still rushing over him. Clouds of smoke hovered in the air, and not would they scatter. It was a daze, a mist all about him, and it cast an eerie gleam. During this time of enchantment, Percival was to belong to the world, not to himself. Like the chess super knight, he could now move as the queen moved. But more importantly, he could move in any direction as desired by the currents of the world. Although with this type of enchantment one's freedom was somewhat restricted, many had always clamored for the privilege.
There was the late summer sun already setting early over the sea. There was that green flash as usual for those who cared to see it. How the sea did mesmerize him, and why? Why was he still here at this inn of mariners by the harbor? He of the land who liked to feel the earth beneath his feet. Why was he writing these memoirs? So passive as it was, so active would he be? Well, there was still time to remember, and so there would always be. Today the sea was uneasy, churning, ever churning. The waves did not know which way to go, so they went every which way. The way of Percival's life at the moment. Suddenly freed from years of battle, which way could he go? Would he go?
Birdsong filled the morning as he packed up the camp. Before leaving town, he made provision for two. Alexis returned, not saying where she had been. Since they were still strangers to each other, Percival did not press his inquiries. Why Alexis wished to accompany him now, he really did not know or yet care.
She claimed to be a waif, abandoned by her kin at an early age, her guardians killed by Saxons early in the wars. For years ever since, she had lived by her wits and by her charm here and there. Soon Percival fell under her charms.
Percival did not talk much about his past, his knighthood, for he felt that he had to bury those days and those thoughts, so he could begin to adapt to the new enlightenment, the new style of life. fact, Percival learned much from her even though he was born in the woods. She taught him how to find salt left by evaporated ocean spray in the dried hollows of the sea rock. Under her tutelage, Percival finished his schooling in the ways of nature. No longer would he pass through life hardly aware of the stir of the insects and the birds and what they could tell him. And they could all be heard now, without the clatter of the horses of the hill. Lately, Percival had only experienced these things in his poetry, for without poetry, life was as flat as stale wine. Now life was almost too real to be true, but he was a good student. Still, she was the master. Percival became ever more entranced with Alexis, somewhat younger than he was she. But in his heart of hearts he still yearned for Guinevere and pulled to her even more than his oath demanded. Somewhat older than he was she, but not too much so, for she was a child queen.
Where do we go now? Do we have no purpose?
My lady, I ride as fate leads me.
A slip of the night tongue, a reversion to the old ways of the quest. It was then that she knew his identity for sure, for she had heard the tales told and retold many times at her great father's knee.